a Rengar towards Fireloli.
And if RNG really want to throw a spanner in the works, they can priority pick that Graves away from EDG. So when RNG have had priority pick, they've looked towards the Ashe. They've tried to get Uzi on the champion that he wants. When EDG have had the opportunity, they try to prioritize Fireloli's champion pool, but EDG kind of see what could happen, and they say no, they take it off the board.
I just had a sneaky feeling that that might be the case. EDG preventing RNG to first pick that Graves.
It should mean that the Ashe is that much easier of a pick, but we have also seen the cheeky Ivern bans coming out. We know that Fireloli and Mlxg can play those compositions, which means that there would be a shifted priority towards someone like Caitlyn to work in tandem with the brush that Ivern can set up, but nope, RNG going back to the tried and true, it seems.
Giving it back over to Uzi. I mean, game 1 was exactly what you wanted to see from him. Game 2, he just really didn't get into those fights, and it wasn't Uzi's fault. RNG just couldn't do anything. EDG had slowed down the tempo too much.
Yep, had this champion all 3 games, excuse me, well, all 2 games, now 3 games this series. And if that Caitlyn gets locked in, that possibility of the Ivern becomes that much more.
Becomes higher up for certain, and we saw EDG running this composition. I mean, they are probably going to pick the exact same composition we saw against Newbie just in the quarterfinals, which was all eyes on that Caitlyn. Kennen is also up, and that was the crux of the composition. So EDG gearing towards it. RNG will need to look to disrupt. They know what's coming. They've seen it.
Yeah, and I hate to tell you, RNG, but there we go. So what are your options? What are you going to do with this? I would love to see RNG throw the gauntlet back at EDG and just go for super aggressive dive-oriented comps. That can start with it. I was hoping more for like a Nocturne. I'd love a Nocturne, but probably not going to get it.
To be honest, for us, it's a fan service pick at this point, like the Nocturne and the Leona. It's fun to watch, but when you're up against it, if they'd won the last game, I would say RNG 100% go for it. But EDG firing back so strong, they're actually just going to go for the Nautilus right here. On the opposite side, EDG will lock in the Jayce, so they're actually moving a little bit further away, but that might be the one other power point on the side of EDG.
This is getting even more devastating to structures as EDG start rounding out this composition. No Face seems to find it pretty funny. Not only do you have the siege potential of the brush with Caitlyn, now you get to add a Jayce on top of that. So I already like what EDG have. I would hope that they go away from the Braum. It was hovered initially by Scout from Meiko. I'd rather see something like a Nami here, just because I think they need so much more disengage potential to keep this unit safe when they step up to those structures. Gragas is also a big priority here.
True. Lulu is also still open. Well, scrap that. Lulu is now banned along with Karma from RNG, so they are taking all those options away from EDG as they set up for this composition with Caitlyn and Ivern. Meanwhile, LeBlanc and Syndra picked up here against RNG, or banned away rather. We now look towards EDG and their support pick. They want to get a support pick right now before RNG start taking them away.
And it also then takes away the push priority that RNG could try to craft with that bottom lane, having the Ashe Zyra now. Meiko has been so devastating on this pick, and I feel like it can do some of the similar things that Nami does in terms of its zoning potential with Stranglethorns, but whereas Nami can really only go backwards super well unless she hits a bubble, Zyra can go backwards and forwards with Stranglethorn.
On the opposite side, RNG will lock in Taliyah here for XiaoHu, so he finally gets his hands on this. This has been banned out in the first 2 games, and honestly in a lot of games that XiaoHu plays, so this is another big power point for the side of RNG as they look towards their final pickup here. Of course, won't get the up. I have a premonition. I think it's going to be Fizz for us. I don't know what's told me that, apart from the fact that LetME just changed the summoners.
Ah, no. Really?
I wonder what it could be with 1 second remaining. Oh, what's that? It's a Fizz pickup. I'm a god.
Profit Pulse.
Yep,
it
right
just
here.
rolls off the tongue. That said, I think that we're either going to see a Gragas or a Shin. Oh.
Really? Unreal. How did you guess that one, Frosk?
I don't know. It's just an inkling.
And EDG are considering that Gragas right now as Mouse has the final pick over towards him. He will have a good early game up against the Fizz. And by early game, I mean like levels 1 to 3 until he starts getting points in W.
But the thing is with that Fizz going up into the top lane, it does reveal that Nautilus was a flex pick going down to the support position, and if that bot lane was bad before, it got even more volatile. That is pretty much sacked for Ming and Uzi across the likes of Caitlyn and Zyra, so there's a huge window for Ivern to play around, and this is what's so important with an Ivern. He needs to have a strong side of the map that's set up by pushing priority lanes so he can get in and start being that obnoxious pest, that weed growing up in everything in the jungle, taking all your buffs.
I love that description of Ivern, actually. He really is a weed.
I hate him.
He's just annoying. Once he gets ahead, he is incredibly oppressive. However, shutting him down early, which is a possibility as the Lee Sin comes out here. Quick handshake and a bit of banter between the coaches. It's like, you dirty, picking up Ivern in this game. Semi-finals here of the LPL. All right, I see you. Let's see what we can do to try and shut that one down.
Yeah, changing things up, trying to take power away from Zet has left the Ivern to slip through. We said that both of these junglers have shown it over the course of the LPL to mixed success, but usually on the positive side since they've been on the top end of their brackets.
That is true. Ivern is just so scummy once he gets ahead.
He's so scummy with pushing lanes. He's probably one of the most punishing junglers in the game just because he has the fastest clear time. And when you have shoving lanes, there's nothing the enemy jungler can do. He wants his laners to rotate to help him out because when Ivern invades, if he has smite, you can no longer smite contest. Your only option is to fight him, to kill him. And when the enemy has the inside track to rotate, you can't even do that.
But if there's any team in the LPL who could stop the Ivern in its tracks, it would be RNG, having such an incredible early game and just to strengthen these matchups. But they did kind of draft themselves weaker laning phases, especially for the bottom lane. So best of luck to them, but they have somewhat handicapped themselves in the first couple levels. Yeah,
especially on that top side, like you were saying. Fizz will eventually get control there, but it's going to be rough initially. I feel like all eyes are really on Mlxg and XiaoHu, how those two team up to combat Fireloli.
And that is the story of the early game as we get onto the rift for RNG and EDG. Game 3 of this best of 5 semi-finals. Winner goes over to Nanjing, China, and will look to claim their title here in the spring split.
So already what I find quite interesting is the fact that Mlxg is starting on the top side of the map. So I suspected that he would start bottom, not only to give him a head start towards rushing towards that Fizz, trying to get him leapfrogged ahead in the early levels where he struggles, but also because Uzi and Nautilus are going to have a hard time competing level 1 on the push. But it seems like Uzi and Ming aren't ready to give up control just yet and are setting up in the lane to try to weed out Zyra's garden that she'd be building down there. Although as I say that, maybe I was right all along.
Maybe,
this makes more sense.
It does indeed. Also looking towards some of these Keystone Masteries, XiaoHu has gone for the Storm Raiders Surge, which we have seen cropping up very recently, in fact. Usually you see the Thunderlords on Taliyah, but in literally the last couple of days we've been seeing more and more Storm Raiders.
I actually really like it against champions with skill shots in particular, the likes of Jayce, the likes of Syndra, because it can kind of help you out-trade if you outplay them. I was doing a lot of watching today on XiaoHu on Taliyah and talking to Rusty about the matchup. It's just so important for Taliyah to be pushed forward in her lane because of her worked ground and the fact that she has a limited amount of space that she can really work on that mid lane, so she needs to eat up a lot of that timer with backs. It's easy to do those backs if you bounce the creep wave off the tower. But specifically against champions like Jayce, Orianna, Victor, champions with skill shots, it becomes quite easy to try to trade effectively on Taliyah because you can figure out where she's going to stand. She doesn't want to stand on her worked ground. She wants to stand in the areas outside. And that makes this big target where Jayce can just throw those Qs.
That's like, I wonder where Taliyah's going to be in this lane, where she's trying to path towards. Makes it very easy to hit that as we see Mlxg moving towards Fireloli's jungle, but actually opens up right on top of the Ivern, has this red buff already, forces the flash out of Fireloli. And Mlxg, man, the patience of this red buff. We'll actually just look for this 1v1 against Lee Sin again, and Mlxg just gets everything.
And a clever fast start from Mlxg. He doesn't even want to toy around with the fact that Ivern's lanes would get the push prior, and he says, no, before even that moment, I'm going to deny this guy.
That forces Fireloli onto the bottom side of the map, but he knows the fact that Mlxg had red already means that he won't get too much done. Scout being forced back in the mid lane, looking towards this resonating strike from the Sonic Wave, but not going to happen. And Mlxg will just help out XiaoHu pushing this wave. He's a good jungler, he won't look for the tags.
But they're free to have the confidence to do this, knowing that even if Fireloli wanted to look for the flank there and get involved, he is low mana, or excuse me, low health, he doesn't have his red buff, and Scout's already hurting, doesn't have the mana to fight. So I like the confidence from XiaoHu and Mlxg to start bowling Scout and Fireloli around.
And this time we get to see the top lane matchup early. And funny enough, LetME has somehow managed to find the push, so it means that Mouse has to farm this one under tower and just give preferential early back timing to the Fizz.
So, my top lane expert pulls next to me. What happens or what goes wrong when Fizz gets the push on Gragas?
Well, it means LetME goes back to base, gets the early push, and means that he can now start trading off against Mouse. Because in the early levels, 1 to 4, Mouse just clicks all his buttons, and LetME has to deal with it. And if he gets pushed out of lane, then there's nothing he can do, and it just means that he can stay on top of the Fizz. However, now, LetME can look for the all-in potential, he can bring Mlxg up here, look for the kill. There is so much pressure in this lane that he doesn't usually have. So, I don't know how he did it, but good job, LetME.
And the shorthand version of that is the fact that Gragas gets 3 damage abilities to press, and Fizz is really only relying on mostly his W to do the work for him. So definitely has to dig himself out of that hole.
Yeah, it's just like he steps up and then it's like, well, what did you want to do? Body slammed out of the way. You can never get your standard W into Q combination as Fizz, just because Mouse will be so disruptive with body slam. But apparently, I honestly don't know how he got the push. I really want to go back and see how that happened. Regardless, it does open up a new path for Mlxg, and now we look towards Fireloli, who may even look towards topside.
Taking his time with a relatively slow clear as Scout continuing to flex that he is such a confident Jayce player, and he'll know this matchup inside and out. We did see that XiaoHu was playing Jayce last game. We know that XiaoHu is also an excellent Taliyah player, but Scout's really the guy that made his name on these 2 champions in particular.
Pushing up this wave, Scout off to the side. He, of course, wants to land that shock blast, and looks like he did indeed do it onto XiaoHu. We get another push down, and he is slightly ahead in terms of farm. We did have that initial back come out from both of these mid laners.
This is my favorite thing about Taliyah matchups, though, is just how it kind of cuts the lane differently. You no longer have this line of scrimmage set where both mid laners just lock eyes across from it. They start playing, you know, vertically in the lane, where they're standing next to that brush and trying to avoid all of the AoE, which means this vision is so much more important. These control wards being cleared out. Because now no longer you can stand to those sides because a jungler could be behind you, popping out of the brush.
Combination of poignant? Man, I can't even pronounce it right now. I was trying to bail you out and I just dug myself into I actually just jumped in there with you.
Did I say another word wrong?
Yeah, it was important and...
Potent?
Potent, I think.
I can't speak.
I'm just combining words. Just putting everything in there.
I'm just being really efficient with the English language.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Compound words.
Here comes Ivern.
Here comes Scout, slowing down XiaoHu, flashing over the flick, and XiaoHu nowhere to go, flashes away himself, but Fireloli's got you in his sights, and Scout confirms the kill.
Ah, devastating there for XiaoHu. You can see him, he's shaking his head, not what he wanted. But the thing is you had the ability to absorb that. You were in that river, clearing out EDG's control wards. Just set one of your own down.
Disastrous start here for the mid laner of XiaoHu. This was his pick. And now, Fireloli is ahead, and this is what we're talking about. Terrible position to be in.
But now Mlxg top. Ultimate
being used by LetME, and he will get the follow-up as well. Has to flash away, but that was a great ultimate in from Mouse, but it may not even save his life because LetME is just waiting this one out, looking to just prod the fat man in the backside. And Mlxg, whoa, he actually didn't take the tower shot, and it will be LetME going down for a 1-for-1 kill.
Scumbag tower right there. Best case scenario for Mouse if he can trade even in a 2v1 scenario. Also, the fact that neither top laner has their teleport means it will be a slight advantage to LetME just because the wave was pushed forward. But now Fireloli caught out.
XiaoHu and Ming coming over the wall will flash over, is looking for the staggering blow and pins down Ivern. Goodbye, Fireloli. Another kill. This early game is so scrappy.
What you doing there, buddy? You didn't have your mid laner. Scout was walking down back to his lane. You didn't have the push priority because Ming made the rotation first, and you walked right over a ward. Why were you invading without your sweeper or your control ward?
Pretty random, and he didn't even have the buddy system. Daisy wasn't even up at this point in time. He was level 5 still. Scout going back into this mid lane. Just trying to make his way in here, as XiaoHu was stopping him to getting in there. Mlxg taking away this red buff, and he gets it in time. Will spot Fireloli, who places down his own ward. Mlxg with that level 6 does have kill potential on Fireloli if he just get on top of him. For the meanwhile.
And suddenly that mistake of Fireloli face checking in without his mid laner is starting to bleed over in more ways than one. Not only losing his red buff there, but then losing any sort of survival potential against Mlxg's level 5. Well, was level 5, now finally has Daisy. That was scary for a minute.
It is indeed, and it's definitely worth getting hyped in this early game for us because so much will ride off the back of how this early game goes. Here comes the flash from Meiko, jumping out of that arrow.
Ooh, that gave him a haircut.
He was definitely clenching.
He smelt that as it went past.
There was definitely a lot of analogies and metaphors going on there, but either way, Meiko will make his way out of that one.
I feel like I had to one-up.
Yeah.
I was like, you stole my clinch.
I've never been told that before. But 9 minutes into this game, 2-2. And it's actually dead on even in terms of gold. Only maybe 100 gold in it. And just as I said, of course, EDG just pick up an extra bit of gold in their lanes, get this push on towards them. And that is shown within the gold totals you can see right here. Is Uzi just take the full ultimate to the face. His AD carry, his support rather, had to go back to base. And this tower is almost down.
Yeah, because while Fireloli hasn't been able to capitalize on this 2v2 and what we wanted, EDG are still doing so. But here comes the teleports.
Twin teleports coming in. LetME is already into this fight, but he is initially trapped by Zet. Looking for that hop there, but he's locked down by Mouse and should be falling. He tries to get the damage onto Zet, and it's a lot, but it's not close enough for a kill. Fireloli does not connect the root caller, but Daisy wants blood. Daisy is bloodthirsty, and Scout will just make his presence known. So that is just the one kill over to EDG.
And unfortunately for RNG, XiaoHu unable to rotate. Beautifully set up, however, by Meiko and Zet to take the kill on Fizz. They now make an easy rotation into Ocean. I feel like this entire series has been nothing but Oceans.
It really has. What has been going on? We did see a couple Mountain Dragons in the last game.
We saw one.
Okay, we saw one Mountain Dragon in the last game, but it's just been Oceans. As far as the eye can see. See what the next one would be. I swear to God if it's another Ocean. We'll find out in a second.
Clinch?
Oh, it actually is! Another Ocean Dragon.
Man,
absolutely unreal.
Feels bad.
Okay. He's just, you know, working out some of that pent-up aggression that he had out of that last fight. He didn't get to do anything really, so he just walks in, roundhouse kicks Scout, sends him back to base, sends him packing.
But let's talk about what happens on the map now. So the tower has been broken down in favor of EDG. I always like to talk about the different blueprints. So I feel like teams got really comfortable in the Jhin Ashe meta where they're like, oh, it's so easy to break mid lane tower. You just unlock your arrow or your ultimate from bottom lane, you move it mid in Fog of War, you just let it fly. With Caitlyn coming back in the meta, with Varus getting really popular, you can no longer do that. So now you need to start swapping your bot lane up and towards this top side. Now, Uzi's matching it just because he wants the free CS and he doesn't want to be overextended past that tower. Poor little Ashe, very immobile. But it forces these teams to be so much stronger with their flanking vision if they want to continue the push with the likes of Caitlyn, because they need to overextend in the lane.
Oh, Scout really wants to jump on top of XiaoHu. And didn't get his shock blast, so it's not being a kill. Has to flash the root caller though as Fireloli was coming in. Bit unfortunate for Scout because that pesky minion got in the way of his shock blast. Regardless, RNG will look towards his top tower now, and Zet cannot step up.
Frankly, this is Meiko being out of position. He was hanging around the mid lane, nowhere near Zet, and Zet just needs to respect the depth charge as well as the arrow. But here comes Fireloli.
Fireloli on his way up. Here comes Meiko as well. XiaoHu knocking Scout into his unraveled earth, and that forces the flash from Scout. Fires back with the shock blast, but I'm looking towards his top side because it is a party.
So many ultimates available, so much burst damage there. Meiko doesn't have exhaust. He will strike first. Meiko's quickly trying to position himself. He almost walked behind Zed. He's like, I probably don't want to give Lee Sin this free insect.
Yeah, probably not. Fireloli is just making it very difficult for RNG to step up to this tower. Don't know how many people are in that brush. At the same time, Zet will also augment his passive, so everybody wins from the side of EDG. And that has been stymied for now. So that one tower advantage is remaining true for EDG at the start of this game.
But they want to start sieging. And the point that I was talking about before XiaoHu decided to go Super Saiyan in the mid lane is that if EDG with the Caitlyn blueprint want to continue sieging towers, it means that the flank vision has to be so much stronger because you need to overextend in the long lane versus, you know, overextending in the mid lane, which is the shortest one. The problem is that RNG have complete control over that river right now, so EDG aren't even brave enough to step forward unless they have more members, their tanks in particular, to lead the charge, to lay down that vision, to push out.
It's tough for sure, and as a result, EDG will just look to consolidate at this point in time. Scout will take this red buff though, so he'll be pretty happy with that one. Towards this ghost, would like to get in range of the Taliyah, who blocks up this path. This is a no-walk catwalk.
There are so many pings going down, and it's for Mouse right now. They're trying to catch RNG out, and the rest of EDG are also rotating mid.
Hello, Mouse. Looking to stop that insect from happening, but Mlxg was waiting on that one. Here comes the fish as well. Mouse is going to take a lot of damage from this. Fireloli also tagged by the shock as it comes in. And goodbye, Mouse. Gets taken out immediately, and Scout over the wall. Wyatt staying around, but Mlxg also falls. Zet and Meiko dealing the damage and punishing that mistake. 2-for-1
trade, however, is still in favor of RNG. They don't have an arrow to continue follow up, but they do have a lot of health.
Down
it looks
goes
like
Daisy.
we're just going to clear the wave and back off.
That flick had landed. We'll see that one once more.
Mouse is so greedy with his cast here. So insect back, he could have used his flash to put himself on the other side of the insect kick to start with, uses his cast at the very end, and then poor Scout caught between a literal rock and a hard place, and is the second victim to go down for RNG.
And Mlxg, he felt like he played that fight so well. It's like, you know what? I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to jump in on this kick. And then got blown up instantly as he jumps into a thicket of Stranglethorns. So Meiko does at least get that one kill and hands it right over to Zet. So that is nice for EDG. At the very least, this game is actually 4-4, and the advantage is still in the hands of EDG.
And speaking of Meiko, no wonder he was out of position in that mid lane. That dude still has his brown bags. He just picked him up at 15 minutes in the game. He's been the slowest moving dandelion you've ever seen.
It's pretty true, but he does have a full initial item picked up, so you know he has that going for him.
I have the bonus that I can place 3 wards.
Yeah, 4 wards. Meiko's in a great position.
Well, technically, you can do it twice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it helps with moving your vision, but if you're never picking up your vision and moving it, if you're just relying on static wards, then it's not really that much of a bonus. And it's harder to do that when you don't have boots.
Yes, but he always had someone escorting him, though. Mouse will meet LetME in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, we're looking at the top lane. Scout, what a great thundering blow. That thing has the most ridiculous priority in the game.
That is some spicy spaghetti.
It really is. It just reminds me of old Poppy Charge, which just went through absolutely everything.
Jayce knockback.
Yeah, Jayce knockback will counter absolutely everything. You think you're in the air, but you're actually just still going the direction of the thundering blow. So either way, play does not work onto Scout in this one. Now looking towards some of these item builds, because Zet has gone towards the Renowned Hurricane. Last time we actually saw him go straight towards the Infinity Edge. And
again, usually when the AD or the LPL AD carries prioritize, or the hold on, here comes the Weaver's Wall. Oh, he doesn't have it. Gonna have to chase him down the old-fashioned way.
He still wants to kill Scout. Connects the kick, connects the kill. And XiaoHu will be collecting that one.
I was just looking at the trajectory of Taliyah. I was like, that's going to be an easy kill. Walks him down. In return, EDG will trade Scout's life for another Ocean Dragon. So, not the greatest.
All right, what are the odds it's going to be another?
Oh.
Okay, well, just as bad. It's going to be another Cloud Dragon. So, at the very least, EDG will be very healthy, and it is really nice with something like a Jayce and a Caitlyn, but it's not the same kind of siege poke composition we saw last time around, where they really would have benefited from it.
I mean, as Dom likes to say, triple Ocean is still awesome. My problem is that when you have to put the word triple in front of that, there's probably inherently something wrong with it.
And when you're quoting a play-by-play to validate something in the game.
Trying to dig deep.
You can definitely tell we're digging. But Uzi shooting out the drone, seeing what's nearby, scouting this one out. He didn't even get his last cupcake. Disastrous. But either way, he does have his Blade of the Ruined King, so he's in pretty nice shape for himself. He does want to get towards those 2 items, though, where he can really start to dish out the damage.
But the thing is RNG either want to break mid tower or they want to break bot tower. So the 2 most important areas, though.
Whoa, arrow onto Scout. He's actually just going to die where he's standing. Last little pebble there from XiaoHu who will find that kill. And he's going to build a wall right behind EDG. Oh, and Daisy takes the hug. What a true bodyguard. Pops the ultimate anyway. Still wants to kill Meiko. Great flick back. Fireloli will stand right in this redemption and take a lot of his health, or restore a lot of his health. But this siege is going real well for RNG.
And finally, Mouse trying to come in. But here comes LetME. He's behind tower.
Uzi getting knocked into this one. Here comes the fish, lands onto Fireloli. LetME wants to set up a kill onto one of these squishies. Ming's going to go down, but we're going to see at least some trading here from LetME. He'll lose his diving buddy. And 2 more kills over to EDG. Look to turn this one around, but there is no vision for LetME. And that's a 1-for-2 favor of EDG.
And the tower still stands, so RNG, a bit indecisive. Are we going for the tower? Are we going for the dive? Because they split their decision-making, they get neither.
Well played to EDG in the end of that one, because it looked so bad for them. Just corralled using this ultimate from XiaoHu, landing all of these skill shots. And even with Daisy being the real homie and taking that dredge line, it still looked bad for them.
Can we pump the brakes, though, and get a replay on Scout? What was he doing? Why was he there?
I have no idea. He was just taking a stroll through the river, but it was his day off.
This blind corner. Bet I won't be punished coming around this.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's not like there's people standing in the mid lane. But there could have been context to it, which is why it would be nice to see what happened. And again, taking a look at this game, the advantage is now back in the favor of RNG in terms of gold. EDG do have those 2 dragons, but luckily it's not an Infernal, it's not Mountain Dragons, and we don't have a long, prolonged kind of setup to EDG. So these dragons are nice, but they're not amazing for us.
Yeah, which means that the main play is still. Oh man, every time I start with it. The main play is still this mid tower.
No, zero analysis in this game for us, because Zet wants to overextend in the mid lane, and Uzi will punish him for that one. Meiko also dies. LetME was just opening up onto Meiko, and 2 more kills to RNG.
This is why RNG are throwing everything in the kitchen sink mid lane, because that's what they want to break. But they also have the other option where they could try to break bot lane with the Weaver's Wall, and that's kind of the one ability that they're not using as effectively as they could. So round 2 RNG, decide, dive or tower.
But the minion wave still coming in, did not kill those back minions. So RNG do break the mid tower. That'll be good for them. Baron's coming up in 3. I do mention it because it's the LPL. It means that a team's probably going to go for it in the near future. But Mouse is on his way to this bot side now, and Fireloli is setting everything up for his team. But this is not a game where EDG are incredibly far ahead. It's not like they're also on the back foot. So we actually see Ivern in one of these games where he's not entirely useless and he's not entirely oppressive.
But the difference is, especially for RNG and EDG need to be worried, is that LetME is actually playing in this game. So game 2 was fairly invisible on the Shin. Game 3, 3-2-1 on Fizz, but here comes XiaoHu.
XiaoHu's on his way, but being locked up by Meiko. Here comes Mlxg, takes down Zet once more. Meiko, where are you going? Nowhere to go! And he's caught in the mousetrap. 2 more kills to RNG. This
is just the death tunnel for EDG. I feel like Scout walks in there blind, he gets blown up. Now it's Meiko and Zet that get caught out. They're lucky that the jungler didn't go down, or that surely would have been a Baron, but RNG a bit more tempered. Maybe earlier on in the season they would have immediately looked towards that purple worm.
That was a little bit scary for Mouse as he was caught by that minion, got in his way, and Uzi got a couple more pot shots down on towards him. We're looking at Uzi, who is stepping up his game in terms of the farm game. He is well on his way to a 3rd item. Probably at this point you can pick it up after that skirmish as well. And RNG all of a sudden have regained and thoroughly gained control over this game.
And it's about to go from bad to worse for EDG fans, because Uzi's going to back and pick up that 2nd item power spike. So now there's going to be a flurry of arrows and so much control over the battlefield from Ashe.
However, Scout is just going to walk into another brush, unwarded. And what did you expect? You walk into a dark alley, and of course Ming's going to be there.
Why do they think that they have control over that area in the map? Why do you think that you can push that far forward?
Well, LetME really wants to kill Zet again. Arrow lands onto Meiko from nowhere. Here comes the hook as well, and LetME was on his way. Down goes Meiko once more. And 3 of his deaths have been in the last, like, 2 minutes.
That was also beautifully timed there between LetME and Ming to make sure that Ming didn't drag him out of the fish. Fish connects, and then the drag comes through.
I don't know what's going on in this game, Frosk. All of a sudden, EDG are just walking in like lemmings. Mouse is like, now is the time, I will look for this flank. Completely random. And Zet almost getting caught out. Meiko actually pay for his sins there.
I feel like
RNG just stepping it up.
That Eye of the Watcher really didn't matter since it was Rush, because there's no vision.
It's a Dark Omen for EDG. Mlxg will take the next dragon. Hope that it's not an Ocean or Cloud Dragon. Infernal would be great.
What's also really punishing as we look at the itemization is the fact of how delayed the power spikes are from EDG. So these repeated walking into blind corners, yes, it's giving away pocket gold, but it's also then delaying them and putting them behind clock. And that's super punishing when you have a Caitlyn. QSS, Hurricane, and then just flat AD. Zet is so far behind right now.
LetME's going to take down this tower as well. And Mlxg seeing what he can just hit with his Sonic Wave. And now EDG have decided the group, and this is where they are strong, but had they done this 5-10 minutes ago?
They need to hit this and get out, though. If RNG are able to collapse on them, you can see XiaoHu's off to the side.
LetME's positioning. You're trying to judge whether it was a good ward for him to jump on top of. Had there been a flank ward, you'd have bet anything that RNG were going to go in there.
But much cleaner this time around from EDG. This time, they step forward, they have their 2 control wards, they know that they can walk into that river, that they've spotted out that RNG couldn't flank on them, and then use that tiny window to siege mid.
All this vision being cleared away now by RNG. Fizz even went back to base as on his way to those tanky items. And if you are new to the LPL, we like to ping a lot. So half the pings don't mean anything. The other half are pretty crucial. They are masked in the flurry of random pings that happen. So right now there were like probably 20 pings in the bot side. That probably meant ward this area, go down there, LetME.
What kills me is that RNG are the all-Chinese team. There's no reason for them to even need to ping. They can just talk to each other. I almost feel that they're more guilty of the pings. Yeah,
they probably are, honestly, but I guess a lot of them are used to being on lineups with more Korean players, you know, XiaoHu and Royal Club of the days of old. Just into Uzi's bones, muscle memory. I need to ping until I can ping no longer, until the game physically stops me. But how is this game going? Not well for EDG, I can say that for certain. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that one.
On the bright side, though, Caitlyn finally has her Infinity Edge, so now has defensive item as well as a single attack speed item and her 5v5 item. And it helps the fact that there's no true tank. It's a support Nautilus. Yeah, he's fairly tanky, but they don't have that same strong line of scrimmage that they would with a more traditional tank with Fizz going the Trinity Force route.
EDG walking down mid. Very precarious.
Here comes the wall.
Fireloli locked in place. He's going to be the first casualty of this fight. Great kick by Mlxg, insecting him into the team. This is now a 4 versus 5, but LetME about to take down another target. He jumps back and does get picked off here by Mouse. It's a 4 versus 4 now as Mlxg jumps back in towards the big tanky Gragas. But Zed is putting down the damage. He's looking towards Ming. Not going to happen. Zed over the wall, and he falls before he makes it. Scout and Meiko trying to get to safety.
And RNG immediately halt. They stop the chase, they turn towards the Baron. They have so much control vision. The one good thing that EDG have going for them is that Scout is still alive on the Jayce, so the poke is still strong.
He's going to have to land some pixel perfect shock blast here to disrupt this Baron from RNG. Uzi, XiaoHu, and Mlxg should be all they need. Ming is coming in as well for fire support. Meiko and Scout, what do they have? Left in the bank, left in their arsenal. XiaoHu is zoning away Meiko, but he's now out of mana. This Baron is low, 2,000 HP. What can Meiko do? Grasping roots over the wall, but Ming is stopping all of the steal attempts. And this Baron over to RNG.
And there's nothing they can do because they can't see into the pit. Beautifully done with the control ward and beautifully executed by RNG. Started out by XiaoHu. Excellent wall. Fireloli is just going to get deleted from this fight before it even begins. Now that said, LetME will be the sacrifice getting in here, trying to do as much damage as possible before going down, but the Strangle Thorns is used to zone 1, which means once that ultimate's up, the rest of RNG can come through and clean up, and Taliyah is doing so much work alongside Uzi's Ashe.
Looking very good so far into this game. And RNG have definitely wrestled this from the hands of EDG. This game was different to the first two games. First two games, one team got ahead and they just stayed ahead and the game ended. But RNG really had to fight this one back.
See if they can stay true to their past performance with Baron and break the base, though. In game number 1, it was only a single Baron that RNG needed to close the case on EDG. But could have been because EDG decided to fight them for no reason.
Yeah, that's also true.
Meiko stepping to the side, looking for some sort of engage from Fog of War, but RNG aren't going to push their luck and instead are still playing this split push game, something they're very practiced at with this Baron, which is why they're so punishing with the buff.
Tower's already gone. XiaoHu clears that one away. The wave away. Now I'm doing a Froskurinn and I'm combining
just
words.
Concise language.
Concise language, compound words.
There we
go.
Combining 3.
that's the next level. Mlxg stepping up. Arrow lands onto Scout once more. Uzi has been on point in this game. Big kick onto EDG. Zones away everyone from this tower, and this should surely be going down. Even if it is a 6v5 with Daisy coming in, LetME wants to even up the odds.
That said, all 3 waves are still continuing to push for RNG. They just need to be patient here. EDG are running out of time. But the question is, you know, how much do EDG want to overreach for one of their inner turrets? Do they save everything for the possibility of an inhib tower?
In the tower down, RNG look to move this pressure topside. That tower's already pretty damaged. All of the people to lock onto. Probably not Ming. Either way, LetME still pushing this bottom side, and he's 3-3-4. Is incredibly strong, and no one can actually trade up against him. The 1-4 Jayce isn't going to do anything.
But there is a window here. EDG have a massive numbers advantage top lane. It's just Uzi. Taliyah and Fizz are bottom side. And they pull back.
Oh, no. Oh okay. That's, yep, okay.
Almost disaster.
Almost disaster. XiaoHu pops the wall, zones everyone away from the bot side. And now RNG are just taking everything away from EDG. They need to pull the trigger at some point.
That indecision pretty much cost them at least an in-hit, possibly two.
I mean,
come on, do
the base
something.
is being cracked open. EDG need to engage and need to do it now, at least on somebody. But Mouse wants to go in, no one's with him.
Oh god, just disaster. They're lost in their own base.
Ultimate depth charge locked onto Zet, and Mouse is just gonna fall underneath the tower. Scout also fell in the mid lane for us, and this could just be it.
EDG are literally just falling apart at the seams right now. They can't figure out what play they want to make. Mouse seems to be the only guy that knows what he wants to do.
Hashtag Chinese aggression. RNG are gonna take it to EDG, looking for the kick. Insect, Zet into the enemy team, and is into the meat grinder. Face first, Fireloli onto the spawn pad. Meiko, nothing he can do about this one. And the towers fall, and so does the Nexus. RNG take game 3, 2-1, and are on match point.
And any fight that EDG had left in them over the course of that game just dissipated at the end. They just fell over. Yeah, I'd have a disappointed face too. That is rough.
It feels bad, honestly. And he hit the nail on the head on that one, Frosk, when we were sat in that base, falling apart at the seams. EDG could not find an in. And RNG, it just felt like they were everywhere. That one opportunity that EDG perhaps had in that jungle, they just went back to base, was like, all right, let's draw the line in the sand right here. And then didn't.
And that is a telling gold graph. EDG, again, they've had control pretty much all 3 games of this series. Despite victory or defeat, they have the early games, and they're just throwing it away come mid-game. You think back to those repeated blind turns, giving away free pick after free pick to RNG.
Yeah, and the guilty people were honestly Scout, Zet, and Meiko, just randomly walking into brushes, and Fireloli as well, like in that jungle specifically. I think back to that red buff just dying, and Mouse is in topside being like, what's happening? I
mean, that said, that damage to champions graph is also incredibly telling. 1.4k, that is despicable as we take a look at one of the many times that EDG decided to face check into nothing. Why are you there?
Yeah, and you could make a whole montage of that one. It looks like we're gonna find
get
another one.
The 2-for-1 special, because here comes Meiko. Arrow, into Fish, into Dredge line, into Dead.
I didn't catch it the first time around, but Ming actually just waited to chain that CC to give his laners all the time in the world to walk up there with the Dredge line.
Yep, 100% great communication. The fact that the Fish hit, that he didn't tug him out of it, but just such a head scratcher. Normally EDG, they don't fall apart like this. Like, we've questioned their mid game over the course of the regular split. That makes sense. They lose their shot caller Clear Love. It's really on Meiko to mature, to develop to his final form, and to lead the team there. But he can't be everywhere at once. And when he's dying like this for free repeatedly, like there was that one 5-minute stretch where it felt like his screen was gray for 75% of it. He can't shot call that well when he's not on the Rift.
That is true, but at the same time, we did see the strengths of an EDG win. We can see how they can do it. They can start picking apart RNG, slow down the tempo of the game. It's no longer an 8-minute tower. It's now a 13-minute tower. They slow it down, prevent RNG from finding any ins into that one, but they just weren't able to make that game happen for them. Ivern as a pick, when he gets ahead, is oppressive, and then you can never really fire back. You have that Caitlyn barreling down on top of you, bearing down on you, and there's nothing that you can do. You talked about the gold, about the damage. I mean, it is Ivern at the end of the day, and it's also an Ivern from behind, but it does speak towards that point that when they are behind, when they're even, it's very difficult for EDG to actually pick up a win there.
100%, and just the fact that EDG are slowing down the pace of the game to find their victories, it feels like the later that we go in the split, the more LPL teams are kind of losing their identities. And it's nice that you see teams like OMG, Team WE, and RNG embracing them, and that's why they got stronger kind of this surge goes through. But EDG are backing away from that. Like, what made them great? It was the ability to unlock Scout, to rotate down bottom, and just throw everything down there to get Meiko and Zet snowballed ahead, to drop that tower at 7 minutes, and now they're moving away from that. They're like, let's just try to match RNG 1v1, 2v2, in every single position, and it's not working for them.
While I agree, this was also a composition that they have decided just to move towards for this one game. It's like, all right, we win this second game. It's now a best of 3. We can actually try something here as we have this little blanket for ourselves and see if the Ivern picks, the pick works out for them. Pick a Caitlyn, and we move towards something else. We'll touch back on that point in a second. As XiaoHu will take the MVP in this one, 7-1-6, finally gets his hand on his beloved Taliyah, and despite him dying at the start of the game, had an immaculate game following that.
There was a couple of rough walls, but also a couple of very strong ones. And more important is kind of the AoE damage spread, especially around that mid game. This is one of the great walls, though, that's followed up beautifully with an arrow. Fireloli is just going to pop immediately and not get anything done, nor does Daisy for the remainder of this fight. And then LetME hops into that back lane, and everything else is just set up for Taliyah. Look at the damage that XiaoHu will do. Ugh, just completely zones out Scout. Disgusting.
And this is what he can do with the pick, you know, this is XiaoHu's Taliyah. So there was a reason why it was banned out in Game 1 and Game 2. It might be something that you need to ban out once again if you are EDG. But jumping back on the points of EDG and their composition and how they played out this second game, they did go for something different. And now I expect EDG to go back to something similar to Game 1 and Game 2 in terms of compositions. This is what they brought out against Newbie when they had a game up on them. It's like, all right, we're going to bring this on towards you. If this works, great, it's another win. If it doesn't, go back to what we know works.
Yeah, I agree with it, that it's relatively new with the Ivern in particular, but EDG played Siege compositions at the very beginning of the LPL split. You think back to like week 2, week 3, and they were doing it so much more effectively because Scout was on a roaming mid laner. He was unlocked, he was moving around. I feel like RNG just have EDG figured out by keeping him locked down there. Like, we're not seeing the same roam potential from XiaoHu, but if his only responsibility is just to neutralize the mid lane so that the rest of his team can just pound for pound have better talent and just win out naturally, that's totally fine for RNG.
Sure, and we saw that in that game. RNG just played their own game and then eventually won out on that one. So it was maybe a bit of a blunder to have gone for it at this point in time. That does mean now that RNG are a match point, 2-1 in this series. Just need one more win and will secure their tickets over to Nanjing in China. So that'll be pretty cool for them. But that being said, EDG are not down and out. We saw what they can do in this series with that Game 2 win.
But now the pressure is on for someone like Fireloli. Again, we talked about how so many members or pieces on this EDG squad have never really been put in a high-pressure situation like this. Can Fireloli find the mental fortitude to come back in a final series?
That's a great question for us because we look towards our next break and maybe even the final game of tonight here in the semi-finals of the LPL. Let's see if EDG can do it.